Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email us tmosso@the1916company.com for purchase, pricing, and availability questions regarding this watch. Today, we are discussing the return in glory of the original Jaeger-LeCoultre Reverso design. In fact, back when the original Reverso bowed in 1931, the company was known as LeCoultre. The timepiece you see right here launched for the 80th anniversary of the Reverso in 2011. This is, properly speaking, the Jaeger-LeCoultre Grande Reverso Ultra Thin Tribute to 1931. A little bit of backstory. It might be apocryphal, but it's a great story that British polo players in India asked JLC roving representative César Dutré to create a watch that could resist the blows of polo mallets. So he came back to Europe and he actually commissioned a French designer to create a rotating case. The idea being that back when crystals were glass and necessarily delicate, you could rotate the case when you wanted to do things that were sporting, violent, or hazardous. And of course, a mallet can't break the solid case back. And then when you were ready to resume genteel use of your watch, you could revert to the time-telling side. Now, initially, the cases were made by a subcontractor, the movement was made by Tavannes, and LeCoultre was really only coordinating the assembly and design of these parts. So, although a manufacturer, it found itself in the unaccustomed position of établisseur. So initially, it didn't say LeCoultre or have any kind of maker's mark on the dial. It would have said Reverso, and those first Tavannes-powered Reversos were two hands only and manual wind, which is how we get to this watch. Now, for 2011, obviously, in stainless steel and considerably larger, things have changed. But the essential dial, design, and frankly, modest lack of branding continues. I would opine that this is the Jumbo, the Royal Oak Jumbo, the Nautilus Jumbo. This is the Moonwatch. This is the Submariner for Jaeger-LeCoultre. It's not just the core, it is the most iconic version of the core offering that defines the brand. So if you're a Moonwatch guy, because you want the one iconic Omega, you've got your Royal Oak, you've got your Nautilus, you've got your Vacheron 1921, this is going to be your JLC. Okay, Grande Reverso, but not huge Reverso. So from side to side, 27.5 millimeters, and then living up to its ultra-thin nomenclature, even with the reversible case and the chassis below it, 7.7 millimeters thick from lug tip to lug tip, 46.6 millimeters, 20 millimeters is the spacing between the lugs, and then you throw the watch on my wrist, which is 16 centimeters circumference, and the first thing you'll note is that for something listed as 27.5 millimeters, it actually wears quite a bit larger. The way Reversos wear, especially pre-2016, before they started curving and angling the case back, you really got to think of this as wearing like a 41 millimeter round watch. So it's going to wear bigger than the rated size, and just about all non-round watches wear large. So that's the case here. I'd recommend this for a wrist of 15 centimeters circumference and up, and again, mine is 16. Being ultra thin, it easily slides underneath a dress cuff. One more shot down the barrel here. There's a little recess in the case that allows the strap to be super close hauled, so you cannot see daylight between case and strap. It's a very integrated look. You can also see that because there is that little recess, there's no impediment to the motion of the strap, so you can pull it straight down out of the lugs. If you are borderline for wearing this, that's going to help with the fit. The strap is newer than the watch, and you know this because on the bottom we have round scale alligator leather, which is something JLC has only been doing in recent years as it tries to up its strap game and keep pace with brands like De Bethune, Vacheron, Louis Ulysse Chopard, and F. Pigeon that are now using gator on both sides of their straps. Why? Though more expensive by a few $100s, it creates a much longer lasting strap. Taking a look here, we have gloss black, and we actually have medium non-symmetrical scale. They went with an unusual cut of the animal to give it a less generic look, and it does actually seem a bit more interesting visually. And then we have no crimping, no gouging. This is a brand new Jaeger-LeCoultre factory strap. It has a folded edge and a monotone stitch. Taking a look at the opposite side, another feature that's taken hold recently on JLC strap specs. You can see that we have these little pull tab spring bars to pop the strap off the case without tools, then a very simple, modest JL branded stainless steel steel pin buckle. The Reverso is actually a lot more complicated in shape than what you see online. You see a lot of these, and you might assume it's just an insipid rectangle. Hardly. It's always had vaulted barrel-like profiles. The gadroons, or the strakes here, they're media blasted in their base and they're polished on their top, and they run all the way around the case. The lugs are conical and squared off. You can see satination between the lugs. This is one area where the watch is overtly branded. This, of course, is not true to history. The JL logo on the crown, and, of course, plenty of branding on the reverse side. This is modern Switzerland. They couldn't help themselves, but they were discreet on the dial. There's a chemin de fer, or a railroad track, around the edge for the minutes, broadsword-style hands. And while it does have a little bit of a Fotina tinge to it, that adds some necessary warmth to this otherwise chilly silver and black dial. So although I'm not a Fotina fan, I do feel that a little bit of color is needed here, and that helps. But significantly, it's also Super-LumiNova, giving this watch an extraordinary amount of lume for a very formal two-hand dress watch design. Rotating things, you can see the case is surprisingly complex. Prior to the 1980s, there were no water-resistant Reversos, so the fact that this is even 30 meters is actually an incredible achievement, given that this case, which has over 50 parts and multiple unconventional seals, is not an easy assignment to assemble, and you can see that there's a lot going on. The case itself is actually hinged, so it opens up. That's the chassis portion to release the rotating portion. You can see that there are spring-loaded ball-bearing pin snaps that hold it in place, and the quality of this action is what actually led me to fall in love with the Reverso after years of skepticism back in the 2000s. I thought it would feel like a piece of tinsel, that it would feel tinny and cheap. Instead, it's like the bolt of a fine rifle. It's really impressive. Now, taking a look at the inside, we have the overlapping engine-turned perlage that was characteristic of most of these chassis interiors prior to the 85th anniversary in 2016 when they started using a sunray format. The back of the Reverso has always been viewed as a canvas for customization, and this one is buff bare and tabula rasa, as it would happen. So if you want to have it enameled, lacquered, engraved, JLC offers a service for that. There are also a lot of independents that know what they're doing, people like Geoffrey Gournay or Artur Akhmeyev, who can engrave anything you want. And in fact, Reversos became popular during sort of their commercial swan song. It didn't last long on the market, but during World War II, there were a lot of these watches that were customized with unit insignia or patches, numbers, or personalized mementos for soldiers. And so that was a thing on Reversos for a brief period of time when the Reverso was available and the world was at war. You still see some of those hanging out. In fact, Douglas MacArthur had one like that. Taking a look at the reverse side, you can see Master 1000 hours control inside the case, a properly rectangular-shaped JLC manufacture movement. It's true, back in the day it would have been a Tavanas. Today it's a JLC 822. Tested for 1,000 hours for durability, water resistance, chronometry, power reserve. The Master 1,000 hours control is a 41-plus day test of the fully assembled watch. It's much more rigorous than the COSC. It's got a 45-hour power reserve, of course manual wind, 21 joules, 3 hertz beat rate, and although not originally free-sprung, the newer versions in the 2010s to present are free-sprung for more precise regulation and better shock tolerance. So there is a lot to love here. If you want the Reverso, short of going back to 1931, this is as good as it gets. Reach out to Team Mosso at the 1916company.com for purchase and pricing details.